Hello, my name is Joe Marzullo, and I'm here to share my crusty bread recipe, which I got from the internet. I combined all the various ways of doing it, some of them a lot of work, some of them not so much work, but most of all of them made a mess. And I'm an old guy, just like crusty bread, don't care for the mess. I want to keep it as simple as can be. So that's what I did, and here's what I needed. It was very easy. You need a Dutch oven, and I just happened to choose this size stainless steel mixing bowl because it fits in my Dutch oven. I do all the mixing in that. This is a little container for what they call a poolish. It's a starter dough. So we already talked about this. 2 spoons, one larger, one smaller for mixing and so forth. Some measuring devices, different things, teaspoons, little teaspoon, big teaspoon, tablespoon, blah, blah, blah. A whisk, and a roll of parchment paper. All right, now we'll go down to the next thing that we do. We're going to actually mix this stuff up and make it happen. Okay, now we're going to talk about ingredients. I like King Arthur flour, general all-purpose flour. It seems to work the best. Some kosher salt. In this particular yeast, I had the best results with. It's Fleischmann's, and I buy it in this bottle. It's cheaper that way and easy to dip, and I'm all about easy and fast. So here we go. First thing I do is make what they call a poolish. You put some flour and water and a little bit of yeast. You let it sit from 12 to 24 hours, and that gives it a good starter, a good rise, lots of bubbles in the bread. It makes a good job. So this is not started yet, as you can see, but I'll tell you what I put in it. It's half a cup of flour, a little less than a half a cup of water, and some yeast, just a little bit of yeast. It's important that the water is around 95 to 100 degrees because that's the temperature that the yeast likes. And I'll show you what that looks like after it's all up and sitting. So here's the poolish. Same thing after it's been sitting there. You can see it's got a lot of bubbles in it. It's risen. This is about, I don't know, 16, 18 hours sitting in the jar. No big deal. You just put it in the counter and walk away from it. So now we're gonna add the flour. It's important when you dip in the flour, you just don't scoop it up because it gets too dense. So you fluff up the flour, spoon it into your measure, like I'm doing right now. So it's pretty fluffy. Don't pack it down, just cover it, like cut it off like that, smooth it off. That's 1 cup. Here goes another cup. Mixing it up, make sure it's nice and fluffy so it's not compacted so you don't get various amounts of flour and a variable result. We want the same result all the time. Nice crusty bread, nice and fluffy, good taste, bubbles in the middle of it. Nothing better first thing in the morning, a piece of toast with some jam on it, butter, a cup of coffee. This man's in heaven with that. Okay, so we're going to put this aside. Next thing we're going to add is 1 teaspoon of sugar. Nothing fancy about that. Get a teaspoon measure, teaspoon of sugar. Sprinkle it in there. Okay. Next thing is a teaspoon of salt. Now, yeah, I'm not a baker, so hang in with me. So a teaspoon of salt. You want to do the salt and the sugar. Don't scoop it over your flour, because if you screw it up, you're going to have messed up mix. If you drop it on the counter, it's no big deal. All right, and a 1/4 teaspoon, actually not just a level teaspoon, a kind of more like a rounded over teaspoon, like this, of yeast. So there's a little bit extra, more than a 1/4. So we're going to sprinkle that in. That's all. Put all this stuff aside. I'm going to take the whole thing and mix it up. This is the way I mix it. I don't use any additional bowls beyond this. This is it. A lot of those recipes show you mix it on the counter, flour's all over the place, big mess, wife hollering at you. You want to avoid all that stuff. Plus the cleanup is easy. So I've got this thing mixed really good. Mix, mix, mix. Okay, let's go. Alright, so what's the next thing? Oh, I forgot, key thing. Key thing is a 2 cup measure. And I like to use this digital thermometer. Again, reason that's important, a lot of them just say warm water, but if you look on the websites about yeast, they like a particular temperature. So a digital thermometer is great because it gives you an answer real quick, and you're not going to add a temperature in there that the yeast is not liking. So when you mix it in this glass, it may be cold. So when you put it in there, it's going to make the water cold as well. So I like to warm it up as well. So I'm going to walk over to the sink and just hold this underneath the water coming out until it gets the right temperature. Then I'm going to add it to this. Okay, here's my water at the correct temperature. I know it because I measured it. And there it is. It's 97 degrees. Perfect. So I'm going to take that, add that to my bowl after I add this Polish in. Again, I'm not professional chefs, but this is the correct way. I've done many, many loaves this way and I haven't had a bad one yet. So you just add this Polish to it. Really easy. So here we are. We've got, scrape out all the extra goodness. 1 dirty pot. Add the water. That's the side, it's not dirty, just all it is water. You want to keep things simple here. So you can see what this is looking like as you mix it. It's pretty goopy. And you just keep on mixing until you get all of that water and that flour all mixed up. So you get this nice dough ball. This is where that extra spoon comes in. You see how this all sticks in there? Alright, scrape off the extra. Put the spoon back over here. Keep the mess to a minimum because, unlike on TV, you got to clean this stuff up yourself. So, we don't have a cast in the back with cameras doing all this stuff. So, here we are. Mix, mix, mix. Scrape off all the extra. No sense throwing it away. It's all going to be really tasty bread when it's all done. Incorporate it once one big, nice blob. See what that looks like? Easy. We put a cover on it, and this happens to be stretch tight. I like it because it's easy to use. It has a nice cutoff on the bag. We put that on top of there. Cover it up nice. So all the real work is done. This is all covered up, nice. And you put it over on the counter, cover it up with a couple of towels. Let it sit for a minimum 3 hours. It can go 4 hours or more, doesn't matter. But it's got to be minimum 3 hours because it's got to rise. You see all the bubbles and so forth. So I'm going to put it over on the counter. Cover it up with some towels so it stays nice and warm. The draft doesn't get to it. That's it. Here's my mess right here. That's it. Right? Put this away. Wife's happy because they didn't make a mess. I'm happy because I don't have to clean it up. Okay, so here we go. That's all the time it took to do this. And 3.5, 4 hours from now, I'm going to go through the procedure how you cook it in the oven. And it's really easy. Remember, I'm only going to use that one stainless steel pan. None of this powder and flour all over the place. It's going to be real easy. This is a good recipe for guys that make bread. It's awesome. Okay, now for the next stage of this bed breaking fiasco. You got to make sure you have these nice gloves I bought at Walmart, inexpensive, silicone. Don't need the high price brand, those are silicone because the oven's going to be at 450 degrees. A Dutch oven, this one just happens to have a glass top because that's what my wife has. The important thing is this is 11 inches inside. You wouldn't want it any smaller than that. 12 or 13 would be better because a loaf has to fit in there, especially if you like a longer loaf than this. So I'm going to put this in the oven right now, set it for 35 minutes, 450 degrees, 35 minutes. So you may wonder why 35 minutes when the oven may heat up in 15 or 20 minutes at 450. The thing is, the Dutch oven, because of its mass, it will not heat up to 450 degrees as quick. So you've got to give it a little extra time sitting in the oven to make sure it gets up to temperature. So now we're going to do the next thing. We're going to get that dough that we had put aside. It was rising. This is about 3.5 hours ago. Let's take a look at that. There it is. There's just some towels on top of it. And a piece of saran wrap, or whatever kind of wrap I use, whatever. That keeps the towels from sticking to it. So you can see how it looks. It's it's raised up. It's got a bunch of bubbles in it. Looking good. So I'm going to wet my hands. Usually I don't have another pan. I do this next to the sink over there because it's just easier. So you grab a hold of the dough and you take it and you bring it up and you stretch it. Just like this. Then you fold it back on itself. And you turn it 90 degrees. Do that again. Stretch it, okay? Fold it back on itself. So you got a total of 8 times, because you go around 90 degrees 2 times. Okay. So now I've got it. I'm trying to make it into a kind of a loaf-shaped blob of dough here. See what it looks like in there? All right. Okay, 35 minutes has gone by, and I'm going to take the dough out of the pan, put it on this piece of parchment paper, and I'm going to try and put it kind of a long way, because I like the loaf to be not perfectly round. I like it to look like that, so when I slice off bread, I don't have tiny slices and fat slices. All right. So now, it's time to get that Dutch oven. So for that, you got to put these gloves on. Here it goes. This thing is really hot, so you got to be careful. Don't burn yourself. So now you're going to see why it's important to have it on a diamond shape with the loaf pointing like this. When you grab it, the loaf like this, it comes out really easy. Goes into the Dutch oven, just like that. Put your gloves back on. Easy to forget and grab a hold of the lid and burn yourself. That means there'd be a lot of foul language. So anyhow, here it is. I'm gonna open the oven, stick it in there. So I set it for 30 minutes right now. 30 minutes later, we're going to come back. We're going to take the top off, cook it for about another 12, 14 minutes, depending on if it's brown enough, and the job is done. We'll take a look at it in a little bit. All right, see you later. Bread is getting baked in the oven. We're going to clean up. We've only really dirtied 3 things. We've dirtied this pan, this little cup for the Polish. Now this could be just a regular cup, doesn't need to be something special. 2 spoons, that's it. Now here's something important I didn't realize initially, is you don't use hot water to clean the dough out. You use cold water, because the hot water makes the dough real gooey and sticky, and it just sticks to everything. What you don't want to use is use your wife's scrubby thing or a bristly brush on the dough, because it'll stick to it, and it won't come out very easily, if at all, and it won't be a happy time for you. So here's what you do. Rather than pour it down the sink where it's going to clog up the drain and the screen and so forth, this is a guy thing. You just take it, bring it into the bathroom, pour it down the toilet. It goes down there, no problem at all, because the toilet is used to bigger things than a dough blob. Okay, the timer says we have about 45 seconds left on the clock. That's in the 30-minute baking time it's going to be up. And after that, I'm going to take the lid off the Dutch oven, and I'm going to let the bread brown up on the top for about 12, 13 minutes, depends on how brown you like it. So here we go. Shortly we'll open it up and pull it out. Okay, close enough. Take the top off, set it on the side, set the timer for 13 minutes. Then we'll come back and take the bread out of the Dutch oven, and here we are. That's close enough. It's 20 seconds. By the time I get it off, open, it'll be perfect. Let's see what it looks like. Oh man, that is perfect. All right, so grab a hold of these 2 pieces of paper on the edges, like that. Get a hold of that bread, turn it upside down, put it on the cooling rack, and I've got some awesome bread. Alright, look at that. Perfect. It's going to slice up nice for sandwiches or toast or whatever you like to make. Now here's something that you should be aware of. Let it cool off for about an hour and a half before you slice it. And then after the bread is fully cooled off, put a towel over it on top of a cutting board, because you don't want it to get all dried out, nor do you want to put it in plastic and make it all soft. So you can keep it for about 2 days with a towel over it. Come the 3rd day, you have to put it in plastic because it'll get too dry. All right, I hope you enjoyed the video and enjoy the bread. Thanks.